Hi everyone, and welcome to my Halo Reach multiplayer map discussion. With the December 3rd re-release of Halo Reach, now is a meaningful time to discuss the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of multiplayer map design. Forge is an easy editor to use, which can be a double-edged sword. Anyone can make something, which democratizes the process and ensures there's a large number of maps out there. But easy tools do not make for fun or engaging, or even functional maps, so it can be hard to dig through the chaff to get to the good stuff. So to that end, I'm going to discuss 3 of the best practices to follow when constructing your deathmatch, capture the flag, or oddball style maps. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list, as map design is a pursuit with a high skill ceiling, but if you remember these 3 simple guidelines, you'll soon be making maps that are playable, competitive, and fun. For visual reference, I'm going to demonstrate these principles on maps which I have made: Chop, Antipodes, and Sentinel. Best practice number 1. Find a maximum height in your map and stick to it. A litany of pop culture has taught us that the high ground is important for a reason. It is. Domination from above can quickly turn an even sparring match into frustration, as cover is less effective, grenades are tougher to dodge, and in the worst case scenario, you can't even see where you're being shot from. While this may be fun for one of the players, soon no one will want to play against you on your map. To solve this, when you're doing your first mass out of shapes, get your maximum height locked down, and then reproduce that height at 1 or 2 other points in the map. Then, give these matching heights clear sight lines to each other, with available cover of course. Here's a map, Chop, which is built around this concept. Note that the overall blocking of the map is weighted downward, which is accomplished by the high walls and relatively low platforms. Despite there being significant height variation in the lower mid of the map, the top mid feels relatively flat, and no point in the map has a height advantage over any other, with one minor exception. There's a tower here with an accessible ledge. While it sounds like I've shot my rule in the foot already, this exception has 2 characteristics which make it fair again. It's got no cover, and it takes 2 or 3 carefully aimed jumps to get into position. These 2 aspects make the players who wish to exploit this perch open to discouraging gunfire from elsewhere on the map. It's the kind of place where you could eke out 1 or 2 kills before the other players learn your trick.
Revenge.
Best practice number 2. Design your map for the lowest common denominator. Think of a round of Halo as a 3-tiered ecosystem, with each of the tiers corresponding to the skill levels and subsequently the behavior of that match's players. At the bottom you have the casual types, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. These players are the foundation of your ecosystem. Tier 3 players see a place they want to go on a map and tend to just head there, disregarding cover along the way. These players rarely control weapon spawns and mostly interact with each other or with Tier 2. Tier 2 are the moderately skilled players. These players know not to run across top mid unless they know it's safe. They'll often take routes which are tangential to, or more unpredictable than the routes favored by Tier 3. They likely know a few trick jumps and will try the ones that they know, frequently pulling them off with success against Tier 2 and Tier 3 alike. Tier 1 are the expert players who have internalized the entirety of the map. Tier 1 players will subvert all expected route traversals, they have mastered trick jumps, and they've memorized weapon spawn timers. Now, Tier 1 represents a small subset of players, but the behavior that they display on your map and the opinion that they form of it can make or break the popularity of your map in the long run. But somewhat counterintuitively, you cannot design a map to cater to these players. If you do, the complexity will immediately alienate Tier 3. Tier 2 won't be getting the kills that they crave, and yes, Tier 1 will be challenged, but without satisfaction. This is because, and it's important to note the distinction here, Tier 1 does not enjoy using the mechanics to overcome challenges for their own sake. What Tier 1 enjoys is finding sophisticated and unpredictable ways to overcome predictable design in order to get the drop on other players. So without those predictable, accessible troughs for the amateur players to be funneled into, there's no grist for the mill of your higher skill players. This rule is also important because, as a designer, you will likely be unable to predict the ways in which Tier 1 players will move through your map. Even the tiniest ledges or least likely looking jumps can and will be exploited by those most familiar with the upper bounds of Halo movement mechanics. If you try to design trick jumps, these can often feel artificial or forced. But if you design clearly legible movement routes for the least skilled players, your more complex routes will tend to resolve as a natural consequence of this design. Best practice number 3. Resource pressure. Now that you've got your map layout fair and accessible, it's time to start populating it with the meat of the Halo multiplayer experience: weapons, grenades, and items. These seem pretty straightforward, you just aim and shoot, but there's a hidden aspect to these weapons that, if you understand it, can help you refine your gameplay and make those gunfights more memorable. Of course, every weapon has a different combat encounter in which they are most effective. These are pretty intuitive to figure out. Sniper rifles are good from a high perch. Grenades will wreck shop when thrown into a bowl-like area, and shotguns dominate at close range. What you should be aware of, though, when you're placing these weapons is the very strong effect they will have on player movement. If you want to promote movement around your map, and not just wandering, but strategic, nuanced movement that gives the player a sense of agency and that they're making their own decisions, try placing those weapons not in the places that they're most effective, but adjacent to it. Snipers can go at the bottom of a tower. Grenades can go in the bowl so that you have to use daring and caution to go pick them up, and then you can rain death from above. Put shotguns in a place where the player who grabs them at the wrong time can fall to a competent mid-range player, but if they're sneaky, they can use it to its full potential. These are just a few of the ways to make a map play well. Comment below if you have any other ideas. Thanks for watching.